been thinking it's so cool that you're on 403BYs, you're doing so many things. And then it was driving me nuts because you kept saying that you're doing presentations for Rochester area teachers. So I was like looking it up everywhere, like, I need to get in, I need to hear his presentation. But this is my selfish way of kind of getting to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, today we are fortunate to be joined by Craig Mills, and Craig is a fellow Rochester area educator. He lives, we were saying, probably 15, 20 minutes down the road, so it's really nice to be close, even though we're still having to do things through Zoom. But it's been cool to be connected through the 403BYs group, and then recently Craig was on the Teach and Retire Rich podcast, which was really cool to hear about what he's doing on that podcast as well, so I'll link that in the notes below. But Craig, if you don't mind, could you kind of introduce yourself and how you got into education?
Yeah, my name is Craig Mills. I've been teaching for 20 years, and my journey to education was not traditional. That wasn't what I always inspired to do, and just really didn't know what I want to do coming out of high school. So I went to MCC, which is a community college here in Rochester, New York, for a couple of years, tried to figure things out. And I really enjoyed math. My mom had been an elementary teacher when we were younger, and I know that I wanted to work with people, and I kind of had to make a decision. So I decided I'd go for math education, and I got accepted into SUNY Brockport, and I went there for a couple of years, had a really good experience, did some student teaching, really enjoyed being around students and connecting with them and making a difference in their lives. And when I was done and I graduated, I didn't have any job lined up. So I actually went to a job fair here in Rochester and got a job offer in Las Vegas. So I spent the summer after I graduated college in Europe with a bunch of friends and was just very adventurous and like, hey, let's go for this. I don't have a job here. So I came back to the States, and my brother and I drove cross country and moved to Las Vegas for a year. And I taught 6th grade math. And that was quite an experience. I learned pretty quick that middle school students had a little leg up on me. That was not the age group that I was ready for, at least in my first year. And I was lucky enough to get a job offer back in Rochester. So I moved back, and I've been at Rush Henrietta High School ever since, and really enjoyed my time.
Awesome. So I've seen different posts and different things about the Teacher's Master's Program, which I didn't even know was a thing. Can you tell us a little bit about what that program is?
Yes, the New York State Master Teacher Program is a program that was initially just for STEM teachers, and they've since expanded it to include elementary teachers, and there may be some other specific content areas. I'm not 100% certain. It would definitely say on the website, where it was just a certain cohort, like I'm part of the Finger Lakes region, and you had to go through an application process, an interview process, do some testing, and be accepted into the program. It's a 4-year fellowship, and there's a stipend that is attached to that that's paid through the state. And it's been an incredible opportunity for me to really kind of bump elbows and get to know some of the best educators in the Rochester area, or in this case, the Finger Lakes area. And just really humbling to be among other professionals that really inspire me to do better in my classroom and be better as far as a member of my school community, and bring back some of the professional development that I've learned as part of the program to my colleagues and to my administration, and see if it's something that they can use. So I'm really grateful to be part of the group, and just honored that there's a program like this for us.
What does it involve?
So before our options were restricted, we would have monthly PDs that were at SUNY Geneseo, and pretty much ran every month that the typical school year runs. And we would have different presenters, from college professors to other master teachers to people outside of education altogether, who just had some cutting edge information that was pertinent to teachers. And we also had professional learning teams that we created. I was in one for geometry with some other teachers from around the area, just sharing best practices, what was working, what wasn't, how did we teach things, how were we assessing. There's different book studies you can be a part of. One of the we're working with pre-service teachers as well. That's something that I've just joined within the last year that I feel really passionately about. Just being able to communicate to undergrad and grad students in the education track, like what to expect and what are some things to think of before you get into the profession. And really working with pre-service teachers is amazing because the energy that they have and they bring, and the new kind of just insightful ideas and views that they have about education is really empowering, because they're 20 years younger than I am, and the experience that they had as high school students and college students is vastly different than what I did. So those are a few of the things that the Master Teacher Program offers. There's also a statewide conference and a yearly retreat. So it's a lot of different PD opportunities, and it's all, I've found it all to be meaningful, worthwhile professional development that I can apply to my classroom or give back to my school community, to other content area teachers that might benefit directly from it.
So it sounds like it's a 4-year program. Is
Yes.
that right? And then once you're done with that program, are you just done, or are you part of that community and kind of ongoing after that?
Yes, you are part of that community. They have a certain term, I can't remember, but basically you graduate from the community. They have a really nice graduation ceremony where they invite you and your spouse to be there, and everyone is just kind of recognized and honored for their work. And then you can stay on and continue to go to professional development as part of the Master Teacher Program. You can continue to present if that's something that you'd like to do, kind of as much or as little of it as you want to continue to take on.
So you've been going to monthly PDs, and it sounds like, and then you have also opted into presenting, right?
Yes.
Is that optional, or that's part of the program? You are expected to present at some point.
They don't expect you to. It's definitely recommended, but it's not something that's forced. But it was something that I felt like I wanted to give back to the program, and I had an opportunity to present a couple of times with talking about finances, and that was something that I wanted to educate my peers on. So I took the advantage of that.
Well, I think that's amazing, and that's how I got to know who you were, was through, you talking about those presentations. So okay.
My initial presentation was with a colleague of mine. We had just been kind of doing some research and reading some books and listening to some podcasts about financial independence and just personal finance in general, and got to the point where we thought there was enough important information that we wanted to share with other educators, just to give them, because I say this often, you don't know what you don't know. And it was really this opportunity of, okay, what can we share that might benefit teachers who are starting out, who are near retirement, or anywhere in the middle, that we wish we had known. So we presented to about 40 or 50 master teachers and had really good feedback. People wanted more information, and they wanted to continue to learn and have conversations about this material. So that got me excited, thinking, okay, maybe I can present again. And then this past summer, when we were doing all virtual PD, I was able to present again, not to just people in the Finger Lake region, but they opened it up to the state. And again, there was like 40 or 50 people I presented just by myself, to the 40 or 50 other master teachers. And just really good feedback. People were like really appreciative of getting educated on something that they didn't have a lot of education with before. So let me share my screen here so you can see some of this presentation. The main two things that I talked about were the 403B plan and the 457B plan, which in New York State is called the Deferred Compensation Plan for most employees at school districts, if your district offers it. And I kind of talked about the resources that I'd learned the most from. You mentioned the Teach and Retire Rich podcast with Dan and Scott. That has been definitely monumental in my knowledge. And it really started everything started for me with the Choose FI podcast. Financial independence is something that's important to me that I just learned about in the last couple of years. And as far as investing, the guys on Choose FI talk about the Simple Path to Wealth with J.L. Collins, and that's a resource that I picked up and was able to read through that, and it made a lot of sense. And that was something that I wanted to kind of move forward with, that kind of investing strategy. So I did. So in this presentation, I just talked about the fact, like, I wanted to give credit where credit was due. One of the super advocates for 403BYs, his name's Chris Nye. He's a teacher from New Jersey, had put together a presentation, and I was contacting him and asking if I could use part of his presentation. And he said, yep. And the guys at 403BYs have resources available. So I kind of meshed theirs together with my own information that I wanted to share. So I kind of went through what a 403B plan is. Well, there's really two different types, and I didn't know this until recently. Like the old regular 403B was you could only invest in annuity products, which are pretty much sold by salespeople and have insurance products built in and typically high fees. And then after that, about 20 years later, the 403B7 account was created where you could invest directly in mutual funds and not have these annuity products. So what I found to be true is a lot of teachers don't know if they have annuity products, if they have mutual funds, what the fees that they are paying. So later on in this presentation, I kind of got into this idea of what are annuities and why are they good? Why are they bad potentially? What should you consider? And it's kind of interesting. What I learned is in different annuities, they say they don't have any fees because if you agreed to their contract, if you agreed to pay that, it's not a fee in their mind. So you can see here, this is an actual statement. It says fees and expenses 0. But there are two different fees that you end up paying, one being an expense ratio and one being a mortality and expense fee, or an M&E fee. So typically for any kind of annuity product, your average expense ratio is going to be above 1%, sometimes as high as 2%. Plus you have this mortality and expense fee, which can be over 1%. So then you're up to 2.5% in fees. And then it starts eating away at the return that you're going to get. So over the last 40, 50 years, the stock market on average has returned about 8%. So if you cut out the 2.5% in fees, now you're down to 5.5%. Versus like a low cost index fund through a different vendor that doesn't offer these annuities might have a really low fee of like 0.1%. So instead of cutting out 2.5% of your gains, now you're just cutting out 0.1%. And let me skip ahead to the power of fees here. So in scenario one, if somebody saved 10% of their income for 40 years, from age 23 to 63, at the end of those 40 years, if they have a really low cost mutual fund, they'd lose about $35,000 of their potential value in fees, which still seems like, oh man, that's quite a bit of money. But all mutual funds do have fees. There's no such thing as a free mutual fund. Compared to if you have some annuity products in your 403B that have a 2.5% total fee, you could see the difference here. Now you're losing $633,000. So another $600,000 over the course of your 40-year career. That's insane. And when I first saw that, I was shocked. I mean, I'm a math teacher and I was like, okay, 2.5%, 0.1%. Like, yeah, I knew it was going to be a fairly large difference because of my background, but not that much. And to me, that's where you start talking about changing your life and the life of your family and the life of your children or the next generations if these fees are eating away at your investments. And I just had to start telling people, like, I had to get the word out, and I wanted to be able to share with other teachers and other educators and union reps. Like, we need to be really mindful of who we allow on our campuses, who we allow to access our teachers, and just make sure teachers know what's out there so that they can make their decisions with their eyes wide open, as opposed to just, hey, so-and-so contacted me. I assume they're good people because the school district let them in here, when in essence, they're just salespeople.
You don't realize when you hear 2.5%, you're like, that's nothing. That's chump change. 2.5% is like nothing. But it's so hard to grasp compounding interest until you see a number like that. Like over $600,000 in difference. Watch for 2.5%. So that's like, if someone were to say, oh, can I have $600,000, in 50 years, you'd be like, no, I'm going to be saving my money. I'll never have that much. But once you start to get an
Absolutely.
idea of compounding interest, you're like, I will be losing that much if I don't pay attention to what I'm doing easily. So it's just so frustrating. And it's hard because it's like teachers, we were saying, are such, unfortunately, we're overworked. We have so many things we got to do. So many of us don't have the know-how to even put the research in, don't know where to look to figure out what's happening to us and what we're falling for. And we just kind of go with what's the norm. So when they say these are your 403B options, but most people are like, either they don't participate or they say, I don't know, what do most people do? Okay, I'll sign up with AXA, like whatever it is.
Hmm.
So I'll just, or, they're referred by someone else, like, oh yeah, my guy seems pretty nice and we've been with him for 5 years and he's, whatever, whoever the company is. And the salespeople, right, they're nice. They're good. They're hired because they're friendly, but they are
Absolutely.
really good at extracting money from us that we don't know
Yeah.
we're giving them. So, yeah, it's frustrating.
And the hardest part, like you just said, is you trust your colleagues. You've been working with them for a few years. They're like, yeah, let me give you my guy or my lady's name. They've been doing great. Like, I'm happy. And you're like, oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know.
And they don't know what they don't know. If they knew that they were being screwed out of $600,000, they wouldn't be like, here, go to my guy. They'd be like, no, stay away. Right.
Right.
So once you realize this, you'd be, trying to, and now that I've learned, now that you've learned, now that I know Chris was saying that as soon as he figured all this out, it was like game to like teach everybody, want to scream it from the rooftops. And it's just hard because I don't know about you. You're in a good program where you have some kind of, I don't know, and you're a math teacher. So like when you say something, you can say it confidently, you know what you're talking about, and you can truly educate other teachers. I feel like when I go in and try to talk to the union about like 457s, I sound like a salesperson. Like, I really want this. Please listen to how good this is. When you were in the teacher master program and you did your presentation on all of this, on the financial part of it and kind of understanding 457, what kind of feedback did you get? What was the main kind of feedback you got, and were you surprised by anything you learned?
Two major types of feedback. One, people were incredibly grateful and wish they had learned it long ago. And two, people were just appalled and really upset because you almost feel like you were lied to, that you have this person that you've trusted and you thought that they were doing right by you, but they have no legal obligation to do that. But overall, people just wanted to talk more. People want to continue to have these conversations and continue to learn and share each other's stories. And what have you done? What has worked? What hasn't worked? How do you find a fiduciary? That was like one of the major questions. And Dan and Scott helped me do a presentation. Actually, it was just like a few weeks ago, not that long ago, about the same thing. And that was one thing, like, how do I find somebody that's actually a fiduciary? And I remember asking Scott, like, do they just say, hey, I'm a fiduciary? And he's like, no, anyone can say that. I'm like, really? He said, unless it's in a legal document that's written and they signed off on, like, it's not going to hold up anywhere. So I'm like, okay. So on the 403BY site, they have like a list of 20 questions, like a fiduciary pledge that you can give to a financial advisor and they can sign off on that. And if they don't, then I wouldn't trust them. Because at the end of the day, no one cares more about your money than you do. Just the reality of the situation. No one's going to put more time and effort into it than you. And I think we've been kind of duped into this idea of, oh, I got a person, whether it's a family friend or a buddy's buddy, like everyone seems to have a person. It might be under there. Yeah. Interviewing Planet. Yeah. If you scroll down, I think there you go. There are your 20 questions. And I think they had a PDF for that pledge. If you scroll down. So, yep, right there. The fiduciary pledge.
I'll link to this in the show notes also, so you have a quick access. But I have heard from Tara, she's also in the group. She went through a lot of these questions with people, and they'd be like, that's an awful lot of questions. Like, why don't we just talk, we'll set up a time, and they don't want to answer the questions. They don't want to commit to being a fiduciary, and they don't want to go through all that extra legwork that could show, true colors. So
right.
If, big red flag. Now we know to look out for the red flags. We know not to trust people.
Yeah, if you can't take 5 to 10 minutes to answer these 20 questions, then how can I trust you with my financial life for the next 30 to 40 years?
Thousands of dollars in my entire future, right? Like, you can answer 20 questions.
Right.
If we look
Okay.
at Omni, most Rochester area schools use Omni as a third-party provider.
Yes, I'm very familiar with this site.
So let's say Gates. Neither one of us works in Gates. You look up Gates Chile, and it'll tell you. I think they're actually
403B vendors, and
one.
if they have access to the 457, yep.
So like, if you think about the handful of, I don't have my little cheat sheet with me, but the handful of
The
low cost
best, yeah,
vendors,
the
like
best one I see on there is Aspire.
that's been like the one consistent one. I kind of do my
Yeah.
research across districts in Rochester. Aspire is generally there. This Aspire right here.
Yeah.
But the other ones, Vanguard, Fidelity, what's the other one? T. Rowe Price, I think is one usually.
Yes.
Typically,
Yes.
they're all grandfathered out. Look at this. Fidelity,
Yep.
Vanguard. I don't see T. Rowe on them. The good thing about this district, though, they are listing that they participate in 457s. So many districts around us are not, and it's so frustrating because
that was
year-to-year contracts, and like I'm looking now when I'm looking for contracts, like, oh, they don't participate in 457. They don't participate in the 457. Why do you think that is? Is it just not known, or they don't want us to because they have deals with insurance companies, or what?
From what I understand, I think it's just not known, and no one has advocated or brought it to the attention of HR. Because when I did my presentation over the summer, it was almost half and half, and some of the Rochester area teachers said the same thing, like, "Oh, yes, 457, we have access to that." Others, no, like, shocking. Okay, yeah, you brought up Churchville. Nope, not listed. Now it's interesting. My wife works for the city school district, and when I brought up their page on Omni, it did not show the 457. At least last time I did. Maybe you want to type it in and see Rochester City School District. And I'm gonna wait till you bring it up before okay. So it doesn't show the 457. So at first I was like, oh, that stinks. Like, you don't have access to this. But I did some research on their website, and sure enough, you have access to the 457. So why is it not on the Omni site?
If you go to the New York State Deferred Compensation Plan, which is New York's 457, you can hit enroll. You can start the online enrollment, and you can kind of just search. This way you don't have to really enroll with anything, but if a district already has a contract with the New York State Deferred Compensation Program, you'll find them in here. So you said Rochester City School District, there they are. So they do have a contract with them. However, did she try to sign up yet?
Yeah, I got her out of her annuity vendor and into 457 plan. Yes.
Nice. Okay, so I was in a district. I am in a district with the same situation. They don't show up on Omni, but you go through here and you can find them, like that they already have a contract. So then I went ahead and signed up. You don't even have to do it through your district. You can do it right through this website. You fill in all your information. You can fill in all your information here and just sign up through the New York State Deferred Compensation Plan, and then they send paperwork right to the district, and then the district does it on their end to like do the automatic deduction.
Yes.
From the paycheck. My district got it, and they said, no, teachers don't have access to this. Only administration does. So they have a contract. They went through the whole process to get the contract set up, but then they're limiting who they're allowing access to it. So that to me has been like.
Now, see, my blood is like boiling right now. That's not fair. That's not right. Like, if you have your teacher's best interest at heart, you should be able to offer that to all employees, administration, and faculty and staff.
Teachers,
and that's
custodians, bus drivers, right? Anyone that's employed by the district should have access to that.
Yes, whether they choose to participate or not, that's up to them. But you have to have access, and that's why, like, I have such a passion. Like, it is so important that teachers bond together here and really fight and advocate for these choices, because without these choices, you could be the person paying $600,000 in extra fees because you don't have good choices. And it's just such a disservice for teachers and other staff members and employees and even administration if they don't have access to it. Like, it's just such a disservice. Like, it's all public employees could have access to it. Firefighters, policemen, public service workers. Like, how do districts not sign on to this? And from what I think I understand is there's not a cost associated to the district by signing up. So I don't get it.
why is the line in the sand right there? Like, why is it, yes, we want a contract with them, but not for you guys? It does upset me. And I tried a couple different ways with a couple different, like, maybe if I talk to the union, maybe if I talk to so-and-so, they'll understand. But most teachers, or at least everyone that I've talked to in the district I'm in right now, no idea what a 457 is. None. So like you talk to the union and they're like, you mean 403B? You mean this? No, no, no. So I'm trying to tell them, and here I am temporary, and I know I'm just starting to dig a hole that's like, there's going to be no bottom, and I'm going to end up not being able, so I'm just like, well, if I can find a good way to advocate for this, I will before I leave, but it's not going to benefit me, but I wish other people could hear it and, grasp onto what it is, because it's amazing. It's an amazing option, specifically in New York State, to not, to not have it right there and not be able to reach it is just so frustrating.
And that's where I don't know how to get into this position, but I just presented to my union leadership last night about different options and how we as a union can take some steps to ensure that our teachers understand what options are available to them and to try to limit the access that certain sales reps have. I want to be able to do that for other local school districts, for other, not even local, just anywhere across the country. Like, people need to know this. But I just don't know how to get to that point, because it comes across as like, what are you trying to sell us?
Yeah.
Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I'm trying to sell you education and to help better the opportunities that you can offer your employees. Like, wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want to say, hey, look at this. We have access. All our employees have access to this. And here's how it could benefit you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That would be powerful.
Right. Wondering about, how we have to take like 20 different trainings at the beginning of every year. Include that, just a little, blip, like those two, even the one slide where it talks about that $600,000 you'd be losing. If they could have someone talk through that one slide for a minute, that would be huge. Make at least people want to look into it more and do the research on their own. But, and I did find this year when I was thinking that, I went through, I forgot what our provider is of all those trainings. There were optional trainings you could go look at, and there they talk about different retirement options, but I wish it were mandatory.
Yeah. And one of my hopes with my union is that they make it part of the mandatory, not the new teacher orientation necessarily, because obviously that can be overwhelming, but somewhere in that first year that they have some education to these choices.
That's a great idea. Especially so many districts have like those mentor programs. You're with somebody for a year anyways. Have that be just one small part of your training. What do you suggest for people that are advocating? Like, I've heard a lot, this is just how it's done in your district. No, this is how it is. Just how it's done.
I'm not willing to accept that answer personally. So if that's the answer I get, then I'm coming back with, okay, can you give me some like legal documentation? Is that a law? Like, we can't add that, because I need a better answer than no, we just don't do that. And if they come back again, then I'm going right to my union. Like, all right, district office said this. Why can't we do this? Is there a legal reason? And until there's like a legal document saying, no, we can never have the 457B plan, I'm sorry, here's the document, I'm not going to stop. Like, just because somebody doesn't know or they think there's a fee, that's not good enough. That's not good enough for the teachers and the faculty and the staff in an entire district to just say, nah, we don't offer that.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so what do you think? This is my own selfish stuff. I'll probably edit this out. So as far as, okay, so you go to the union and they say, no, this is what it is. And they don't push it. Do you go to school board? Do you try yourself to meet with somebody? Like, what do you do?
Yep. So if I'm not getting anywhere at the union, then I'm going down to the district office and asking who I need to talk to. And specifically, like, can you help me understand, like, I'd like to get this vendor added, or I want this choice added. Here are 5 or 6 school districts in the Rochester area or whatever my local area is that do offer this. Can you help me understand why they offer it and we don't? And I'd be happy to call these other districts and gather information. Like, there has to be a reason, and I'm more than willing to do the legwork to help educate whoever needs the education to figure it out. And if that's not getting me anywhere, then I'm contacting Omni and I'm saying, can you help me understand, like, I work at this district, I'm trying to get these vendors offered, or the 457B plan. I don't understand why it's not, or I'm calling the New York State Deferred Comp. What do I need to do?
Awesome. Oh, that just motivated me. Thank you. I'm like,
just
ready, go, let's go.
don't stop. Like like no matter what comes in your way, like it's not illegal. So don't tell me no.
Right. And then like, how did you get into the finance part of all of this?
So my colleague and I, he's a science teacher. We would just meet and talk over lunch together and just talk about finances and just some like different investment opportunities and what we were thinking. And one day he was like, "Oh, FI," and I was like, "What's that all about?" He's like, "Financial independence." And I was like, "What's this all about?" So I remember explicitly doing a Google search, like podcast about FI, and Choose FI came up, and I literally listened to every single episode and like couldn't get enough. I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing. And then it was episode 13 with Ed Mills. He is an educator in Georgia. That's not his real name, but and he was talking about
Video too.
yes.
Yeah.
He was talking about, oh, I maxed out my 403B. I maxed out a 457. I was like, what? What's a 457? So I went back to my colleague and I was like, hey, do you know anything about a 457? He's like, oh yeah, that's just for police officers and firefighters and stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay. So then I started digging around a little bit and I found like, wait a second, us teachers have access to this 457. So I told him and he's like, and he'd been teaching for 30 years, not all in our district, but he's a veteran teacher. And he's like, what? We have access to this? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, if you don't know that, and I don't know that, and we have 50 years combined experience, 95% of people, at least in our district, have no clue. And I'm like, how is that possible? So it just really kind of stemmed from there. And it was just the more I learned, the more I wanted to know. And it just kept branching out. And then I can't remember what the cross section was, how I got involved with the Teach and Retire Rich with Dan and Scott, and hearing their message. It was just like, this is incredible. I remember listening to their podcast episodes and like, wow, these guys are doing something that I would like to do and help out with as far as getting the word out there, advocating for teachers and empowering them to make some good decisions. And that was just like lightning struck. I'm like, I need to be a part of that. And they've been just so helpful, and they're just incredible guys, just doing the right thing and really trying to help everybody that they can.
I feel like so many of these videos end up being like Dan and Scott cheerleaders, because they really are just good-hearted guys who are like, we have this knowledge, we want you to have access to it, hit us up. Like if you shoot out a message on Facebook, they will respond. If you email them, they will respond. If they don't right away, or find their Facebook group, so many people like Craig are out there willing to quick answer your questions. And it's frustrating the community isn't bigger. Like you wish every teacher in America would find out about it and get into it, because once, like what you said, once you don't want to stop learning. You just dig into everything you can. Like, how did we not know this? So I appreciate that you're doing that, and I hope, I want to team up in the Rochester area and help get the word out.
I would love to get a couple reps from each district and start advocating in the districts that need it and support one another. That would be phenomenal.
Are you part of your teachers union? Like, are you in any kind of leadership position, or just?
I am not. One of my best friends that I teach with is the vice president. So I kind of have like an ear there. And I actually had to advocate for different vendors on the 403B side and Roth options for our district. So we do have both Roth options and regular for the 457 and the 403B. So I feel as though at least our teachers have those options now.
That's great. What options were you able to end up getting? I'm trying to remember.
I was focused on one main one. Vanguard, we already have Aspire. So I figured if we had that, I didn't like try to get TIAA and T. Rowe Price and Fidelity. I didn't go down that route. I figured if they had one.
Yeah.
But
they have
maybe
one, get rid of the rest, get rid of everything.
Yes.
It's nice to be opted in. Like when you work at, I worked at Paychecks. We didn't have 20 options. Why do they do that to us as teachers? Why do they do that? They have lots of bad options and maybe a good option. Mm-hmm. So chances are you're not in the good option.
Yeah. And the more I learn, it seems as though the 457 is better than the 403B. So,
right. And
that's one option.
Any of our districts are taking advantage of that. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Okay. Have you looked through some of the other district options around here and noticed anything else, any patterns or anything? Because I mean, like when I'm doing it, I see that the 457 option is typically not there. But anything else that you're seeing that's worth coming?
Yeah, I do notice a lot of the options that are out there are annuity options, and that's kind of like the old hat, and those seem to be a lot more prevalent than your Aspire, your Vanguard, your Fidelity that we've talked about already. Those low cost options are not as prevalent, and it seems as though, I wonder if those exist in districts where people have advocated for them specifically. I don't know the answer to that, but that would be my guess.
I know you noted some of your favorite resources being those two blogs, Teach and Retire Rich and Choose FI, which I solidly stand with you on both of those. Also, J.L. Collins' book, which a lot of that information is available for free on J.L. Collins' website, and I'll link that too. Any other resources that you think are, really strong if people want to start digging in and like really getting into this, besides just that basic level?
Yeah, like we've talked about the 403BY site. I know Dan has started to put together like self-paced modules where teachers can go through at their own pace and learn this material. And the Facebook group that they run is fantastic. You can post anything in there, and you do get responses sometimes from Dan and Scott themselves, just giving you just honest, genuine advice, and other people chime in. And typically somebody's gone through what you're going through as far as if you're trying to transition from one vendor to the next. That's the other one that I found really beneficial.
Okay. Yeah, and even people, it seems like if they haven't been through exactly what you've been through, they can ask you questions, so you end up getting a better understanding of what you're going through. A lot of people go on there and say, even, when I go on there, I don't totally understand what this is or what the terminology is or why this would be happening, but here's my situation, and they can kind of ask questions to help you get to a better place of knowledge to then, move beyond that. So totally.
Yeah, they give you the confidence to ask the right questions, to figure out who I need to contact to help elicit this change so that maybe we can get this vendor added, or you can decide out of this list of 40, where should I focus?
Right. All right. Now, if people are interested in getting in touch with you about your presentation or about any help that they might need, what is it? Are you open to that, first of all?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
If people would like to contact you, what's the best way to do that?
You can just send me a message through my personal email. I can tell you that now, or we can link it in the show notes, and through Facebook Messenger. That'd be the easiest way to contact me.
Okay. I'll post all of that in the show notes down below.
Okay.
And, anything else you think is important to kind of share before we wrap up?
One last thing I would say is don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because it's that important. Don't take anything for granted, no matter who you've heard it from, a trusted colleague, because they might not know. As we said, you don't know what you don't know. So really just do the due diligence on your own, because no one's going to care about your money more than you. And just keep asking and reaching out and finding these resources that we've talked about today on the show, because there's a lot of people that do want to help.
All right. Well, I really want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know it's late on a Tuesday night. We, struggle to get this time up, but thank you so much for taking the time.
You're very welcome. I really appreciate you having this platform and helping to educate and fighting for yourself and the employees in your district. It's just keep doing it. I know it's going to be frustrating. There might be some setbacks along the way, but just don't stop, because if you stop, then nobody might push again for another 10 years.